Hey, did you go drinking again? This is the third time this week.
Coming home to someone like you nagging all the time, I get sick of it. I need a drink just to deal with it.
It's been every weekend lately, and even during the weekdays this week.
Men have social obligations, you know.
I work too, you know. Can't you come home early sometimes and be there for Alex?
Who cares? Taking care of the kids is the wife's job, isn't it?
Lately, my husband and I have been arguing like this every day. It's been 12 years since we got married, and dealing with my husband's spending habits has been a constant struggle. I am Stephanie McDonald, 36 years old. I have continued working even after marriage. My husband is 2 years older than me, and since we got married, we've aged together. So, when he calls me old hag, it's only natural for me to think, then aren't you an old man? But even though I try not to retort in the same way to avoid escalating into a fight, we still constantly clash over money and the kids. My company is fairly large, and they have a solid maternity and paternity leave system, so returning to work after having children was smooth for me. I have no complaints about my job. My husband also works at the same company, but he was transferred to a different department after returning to work, so we hardly ever see each other at the office. He's in the sales department now, so I understand that he has more social engagements than me, who works in general affairs, and that he often can't leave work on time. But still, I can't help but think about it. My husband never once helped with dropping off or picking up our child from daycare. Hey, can't you go pick up your kid for once?
Isn't that your job? Besides, I never wanted kids in the first place.
But he's already here. It's pointless to say that now, isn't it?
People say you start finding them cute once they're born, but that's a lie. I don't find him cute at all. He doesn't even warm up to me.
That's because you never spent any time playing with him. Even when Alex talks to you, you ignore him.
On my rare days off, I want to relax too. I can't be bothered to deal with the kid.
Our only son, Alex, is now in the 4th grade of elementary school. He's at an age where he understands a lot of things. He's probably well aware that his father is indifferent towards him. When he was younger, he used to talk to my husband quite a bit, but he would only give half-hearted responses, seeming annoyed.
Dad?
What? I'm watching TV now. Don't bother me.
I'm sorry.
Hey. You shouldn't talk like that.
Shut up. I'm tired from work every day. Unlike your cushy general affairs job, sales requires constant attention. Don't make me deal with you even on my days off.
This is how things always go. My husband doesn't involve himself in school events or parenting at all. He's never attended any open class days or sports days. It's hard not to feel like I'm practically a single parent in this situation. Nowadays, even my son doesn't initiate conversations with his father anymore. On top of that, my husband never buys anything for our son, but he spends extravagantly on himself. Yet, he acts all high and mighty every day, and my frustrations just keep building up. I try not to nag too much, but I end up saying something anyway. And there's a reason for it. Actually, when our child turned 3, I discovered my husband's debt. As we both were working, we split the living expenses equally, so I wasn't aware of how my husband was managing his salary. However, since our child was born, our living expenses have increased. Naturally, our respective financial burdens increased as well. We had agreed to deposit a fixed amount into a joint account for shared living expenses, but even though we had only increased it by $200 since before our child was born, my husband often failed to deposit money on the agreed-upon dates. When I confronted him about it, it turned out he still had debt from before we got married. What's more, the balance was still close to $30,000. When I asked what he had been spending it on, how much he was paying each month, and when it would be paid off, he just chuckled and said it seemed like there was no end to it.
I've been using it with revolving payments, so no matter how much I pay, the balance never seems to go down.
What? For a moment, I couldn't believe what this man was saying. Essentially, he's been making purchases every month that exceed his payments, but since he's putting everything on revolving payments, the amount he owes never changes. In fact, it's been increasing over the years. It's such a reckless plan, and it filled me with anger. I couldn't help but feel pathetic that he doesn't even seem to realize he's become a father. To prevent any further splurging, I decided to deactivate all the credit cards he had at the time. He grumbled quite a bit about it, but I earnestly explained to him what would happen if his debt continued to increase and managed to convince him not to use them anymore. If the money had been spent for the family's sake, it would have been one thing, but this debt was incurred for his own extravagance. It's only natural for adults to take responsibility for their own actions. However, because he wanted to repay the debt as quickly as possible, he increased the monthly payment amount, leaving me to cover most of the household expenses. It's been 7 years since then, and the debt has long been paid off, yet the amount my husband contributes to living expenses is less than before. When I asked him to increase it, he simply reasoned,
"You earn more."
He used this as an excuse and never increased the amount. He believes it's only natural for the one with the higher salary to contribute more to the family. My husband's sales performance isn't great either. He's constantly being outperformed by his peers, which makes him feel stagnant, so he's not putting much effort into his work. Consequently, he's not getting promoted. Meanwhile, I was promoted to the head of the General Affairs Department 2 years ago. As a result, I started earning more than my husband. However, he's not too thrilled about it. I tried giving my husband various advice to motivate him, but it seems he didn't like that either.
What do you know about sales? Don't butt in where you're not needed.
He completely ignored my words. He just argues back no matter what I say, so I gradually became tired of it and stopped saying much. One day, my husband mentioned that he was going back to his hometown for a high school reunion. When he said going back, it wasn't really about visiting his parents because they had already passed away, and his brother's family lived in the family home. My husband and his brother didn't get along well and had no communication at all. There had been a dispute over the inheritance when their father passed away 5 years ago. My brother-in-law and his wife had been taking care of their mother, who required nursing care for many years. My husband had completely distanced himself from the situation. Despite feeling sorry, I couldn't find the time to help out much due to my job, and I was basically left to handle everything on my own since our child was born. As a result, I hardly visited my in-laws, and my mother-in-law passed away almost 3 years before my father-in-law, who died a year before my husband's debt came to light. Therefore, it seems that my father-in-law left a will stating that all of his assets would go to my brother-in-law and his wife after his passing. I thought it was fair, and I even told my husband that it was fine, but he was not happy with it and made unreasonable demands. Eventually, we settled on getting paid the statutory inheritance share. However, My brother-in-law was upset by my husband's attitude at the time and, as a result, he angrily demanded that my husband stay out of their affairs in the future in exchange for giving the inheritance share. Knowing about this incident, I couldn't bring myself to face my brother-in-law and his wife, so I haven't had any contact with them since my father-in-law passed away. At that time, my husband used the money he received to settle the remaining debt. However, it was then revealed that while he had claimed to be increasing the revolving payment amount so he couldn't contribute to our living expenses, he still had over half of the balance remaining. It turned out that he had lied about increasing the amount and had instead been using it for his own entertainment expenses, without contributing to our household expenses. It was a shocking and disappointing revelation. When I complained about this,
In the end, the debt has been settled, so it's fine, isn't it? And it's all because you stopped my cards that I had less money to spend. I'll have to make up for that by taking it from our living expenses.
he shamelessly justified his actions like this. Due to the estrangement with my brother-in-law, it's unlikely that he can stay at the family home even if my husband mentions returning to his hometown. When I asked where he would stay, he said he booked a budget hotel near the station. It's sad to think that despite returning to his hometown, he can't even visit the house where he grew up. However, I didn't mention it and silently watched my husband leave.
Isn't Dad coming home today?
No, he's not. As I watched my husband leave eagerly, my son called out to me from behind. And strangely enough, he seemed somewhat happy upon realizing that his father wouldn't be returning. It made me realize once again that my son didn't necessarily want his father around. And I found myself feeling the same way. Today is Saturday, and since Mom doesn't have work, how about we go somewhere together and have dinner out tonight?
Really?
Yeah.
Yay.
Feeling relieved that my husband wasn't around, I couldn't help but think that it might be time to seriously consider our future. But since that reunion, my husband's outings have noticeably increased. Especially on weekends, he's been staying out overnight more often. He also seems unusually cheerful, and he now keeps his phone with him at all times, whereas before, he used to leave it lying on the table. It looks like he even takes it with him to the bathroom and the shower. It's suspicious no matter how you look at it. Hey, haven't you been going out a lot lately? Where exactly are you going?
Well, I've been thinking of getting in shape, so I've been going to the gym on my days off. You know, when you reach your late 30s, your physical condition starts to decline.
Oh, I see. Do gyms also have accommodation facilities?
No, not really, but sometimes I end up having drinks with friends and it goes on until morning. When I'm feeling good, I tend to drink more.
I see. So, are you going to work out and play sports with Alex?
Yeah. That could be a good idea.
His eyes were shifting. As I watched him with a cold gaze, thinking he could have come up with a better lie, I was certain of my husband's infidelity. While I could have hired a private investigator, I decided to follow my husband myself on his outings for the time being. He took a train and got off at the station near his parents' house. Waiting at the station was a young woman in a car, and my husband happily got into the car with her. Since his behavior changed after the reunion, I initially thought the other woman might be a former classmate. However, the woman he met now clearly looked like she was in her 20s, so that couldn't be the case. Nevertheless, I couldn't help but feel a mix of emotions. He spends recklessly, neglects our child, and now cheating? At that point, it felt foolish to even be with him. I made up my mind to divorce him and started preparing for it.
Well, I'm off. Might stay over at a friend's place tonight.
Oh, okay. Take care. I thought this was the perfect opportunity. However, just then, I discovered that my credit card was missing from my wallet. I distinctly remember it being there until yesterday. Since I hadn't taken it out, I couldn't imagine where I could have lost it. I immediately contacted the credit card company and reported the loss. When asked about the last time I used it, I couldn't remember exactly as it had been quite some time. Luckily, I had kept records of transactions on my computer, so I checked and provided the information. Fortunately, they confirmed that the card hadn't been used since then, which was a relief. I haven't dropped it or taken it out of my wallet. So there's only one answer without even thinking about it. My husband must have taken it out of my wallet. I can't think of anything else. I thought he might do something like that. For the past 6 months, various credit card companies have been sending reminders to my husband. Perhaps his own card has reached its limit and can't be used anymore. My husband must have secretly applied for new cards when he settled the debts. And not just one, but multiple cards. I didn't feel like saying anything because I thought my husband would pay for it anyway, so I just left it alone. But stealing someone else's card? This is just theft. Anyway, I'm glad I noticed it early. I began to pack my husband's belongings right away. I know where my husband is. I had a private investigation agency look into who my husband's affair partner is. The woman is 26 years old, living near my husband's parents' house, and she's a decade younger than him. According to the investigation report, she is divorced and returned to her parents' home last year. It seems they met at a budget hotel where she worked when my husband attended a class reunion. Since they were originally from the same neighborhood, they probably knew each other's faces, which might have sparked conversation. My husband is constantly at his affair partner's parents' house. Since they've known each other since childhood, maybe it's easy for him to intrude, but I wonder if her parents are aware that my husband is still married and are letting him stay. Well, that doesn't matter. I had my husband's belongings loaded onto a truck that arrived shortly and sent it off. Now it's our turn. We've canceled the credit cards, so should we move out?
Yeah. That sounds good.
My son seems unusually excited. When I told him we would be living separately from his father, he said, "I totally agree." Just like how my husband ceased to be a husband in my eyes long ago, it seems my son no longer sees him as a father. I regretted not making this decision sooner, just a little bit. By nightfall, we had moved into our new home. Of course, we left the previous rental spot clean and empty, canceled the utilities properly, and returned the keys under the supervision of the real estate agent. As my son and I discussed what to have for dinner, my husband called.
Hey, what's going on? Why did you send me my stuff? Everyone's freaking out.
Well, it seemed like you were staying over there quite often, so I thought it might be convenient to have your personal belongings with you.
Don't mess around. Thanks to you, Julia's parents found out I'm married. You included the divorce papers in the package. And why do you even know where I am?
I had a private investigation agency look into it. It seems my husband truly believed his affair hadn't been discovered. I must have been really underestimated. Your actions were so obvious. I already knew about the affair, but I didn't bother investigating the identity of your partner. I have a job. You know. Plus, I wanted solid evidence.
Evidence?
To get as much alimony as possible, it's better to have evidence of the affair, isn't it?
You won't get away with this when I come back.
Come back? To where?
Back to our home, obviously.
Oh, so you still had plans to go back home? Well, that's surprising too. As he said, it seemed my husband returned home the next day. He must have been quite shocked to see our home emptied. I wonder why he thought I would still be there, even though I had sent him the filled-out divorce papers. Moreover, today he apparently tried to use my credit card, only to find it declined, causing him embarrassment. If a card goes missing, it's only natural to report it lost, right? Oh, by the way, I also filed a theft report with the police.
Huh?
My husband's voice trembled. It was clear he was worried about getting caught by the police. Well, if he doesn't have that fear, I won't be able to settle my anger either. It's true that I reported it to the police, but unfortunately, since he's family, he won't be charged with theft. Furthermore, according to the credit card company, if a card is stolen and used by a cohabiting family member, the payments aren't waived due to the owner's negligence in supervision. It means I have to pay for it. I'm glad I noticed it before it was used. Since my husband's affair was proven, the divorce went smoothly. I reported the divorce to my company. Changing my last name and promptly reporting divorce is required. By the way, when asked for the reason, I accidentally blurted out because of my husband's affair. As a result, the news spread like wildfire throughout the company, and my ex-husband earned the disapproval of his colleagues and seems to be receiving quite a few cold stares from those around him. Moreover, since our company has strict ethical regulations, my ex-husband was demoted and transferred to a regional office. Until now, I had been covering the majority of our living expenses, so it's natural that he'll find himself short on money if he continues spending as he did before. It seems he has finally realized that. On top of being demoted, his salary has decreased even further, and he's struggling to make ends meet with alimony, child support, and payments for his reckless spending on his card. Payments started to be delayed, cards got suspended, and he couldn't get new ones because they kept getting rejected in evaluations. Then he contacted me, saying something like, "Lower the alimony since I can't afford it anymore." But I wasn't having any of it. Naturally, I firmly refused. Then, unbelievably, he reached out again, claiming he had broken up with his affair partner and suggesting we reconcile. That's just absurd. I told him, "Don't ever contact me again," and hung up the phone. My ex-husband's affair partner, knowing he was married but not telling her parents, and apparently her previous divorce was also due to her infidelity. This led her parents to finally lose their patience and become extremely furious. It seems they disowned her and kicked her out of their house. It seems she got my contact information from my ex-husband because I received a direct call asking for a reduction in the alimony payment. The fact that she would even say such a thing to me is unbelievable. Naturally, I refused, and on the other end of the phone, there were cries and screams. I truly realized how difficult divorce can be. Even so, my son and I are living happily every day. He seems much more relaxed and joyful than when my ex-husband was at home. It's truly refreshing not to have any expectations, as if he was never there from the start. I intend to continue working hard in parenting and my career,